Welcome to DJM TV.
Tinubu's speech sounds so real, but not likely to succeed or happen in the real world.
My correct people, we greet you now. Welcome now to DJM TV on our WhatsApp channel where dey sama una with ogbonge updates, breaking news, updated updates. So abeg my people, if you never subscribe to our YouTube channel, make una rush now, make una go subscribe and also turn on that notification bell so that anytime we like say we drop any update like this, una go dey notified. Our Facebook page, my people, make una follow us and make una dey like. Una do well. Anyway my people, make we quickly run enter the tori and update we will carry come for una like this.
Yes, so my people, we don come again with another ogbonge update too. President Tinubu give one kind authentic speech about Naija economy and everything wey dey shele for inside Naija since so. Inside this his speech he make so many promises like say tomorrow no dey. He put mouth for big huge amount of money, million billion all of them. Right now my people, one Dr. Amadi don come outside for the interview wey do for Arise News. Na him talk say the speech sweet e sweet for ear well but all those things wey dey talk he say e dey most likely say none of those things, those plans go succeed for this world. My people, I no go talk too much I go play una this video na make una watch am, sit down, relax and lis ten to this conversation and the interview wey these people dem do for inside Arise. Make una watch.
The president kept talking about the nano economy and the nano businesses. Is that a hint that the small, medium enterprises are disappearing?
Not really. I mean, he at some point he mentioned the small, medium enterprises. His speech, first, the speech is more like what we call industrial policy. You know, a big maybe rollout of his economic policy, but doesn't really address the immediate challenges or impact of the subsidy. Now, you see, the problem is that the subsidy impact has to be tracked. How does it impact people, workers who are going to pay more for movement? Rural women who are going to pay more, even though they're not big commuters, but they're going to pay more for dailies. Food is critical part of the problem. Supplies, healthcare, everyone's going to impact in different ways. So when I hear the president talk about the nano economy, by the way, not well defined in terms of Nigerian policy template, we don't know. There are so many rhetoric that came up today, and I think this is a speech, good articulation, good optics. You know, he came out in terms of communicational excellence, came out well. But look, if you do a critical analysis of the speech, really, it's more fanciful than real. I mean, too many of those billion going to so-called new enterprises, 75 or so of them going to 1 billion in terms of credit. Now, all these things will sound well to people in the private sector in terms of industrial policy, how the government intend to grow the economy. But down to the immediate basic of palliatives, this does not address it. And that's where I see labor struggle, because they're going to ask themselves, in the next 3, 4, 6 months, how will, for example, giving 1 billion to enterprises that you hope that they will be champions, I mean, what we call economics, choosing winners, how does that really mitigate the crisis people are facing at diverse level? The president says, look, there are going to be crises, people are suffering, but these rollouts, you know, some of them rhetorical, basically. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there are a lot of mumbo jumbo. But clearly, they may make sense if you see the implementation policy plan in terms of macroeconomic or in terms of industrial policy, but they don't address really the immediate challenge of the fact that you have moved fuel from 108 something to 500 or 600 something, and that the multiplier effect of this is that people are going to travel from here to east, for example, Lagos, are going to have triple the price. Again, he talked about student buses. Now, I remember IBB at the wake of the SAP riot, you know, giving students buses, labor NSA buses. How much these buses for SUG that some SUG president can use and they move around, how would this really address what the issue? So a mixed bag. some high-level macroeconomic economic growth initiatives, but what I don't see how in the short to medium term they're going to address palliative. And again, last point, subsidy is difficult, is easy to remove, but it's difficult to mitigate the impact of a generalized subsidy like the fuel subsidy. That's what we're seeing. So these big policy initiatives, first, they're not grounded with first institution plan, and secondly, they don't speak to the immediate concern of the people.
Somna Sambo in our off-site studio, still breaking down the president's speech. First of all, was this speech really necessary in the first place? Does it give a sense of a well thought out program? And just like Dr. Sam Amadi asked earlier, I mean, how really do these interventions that the president has listed in his speech, how will they really address the pain from the subsidy removal?
Well, I think the major challenge here is the issues of tracking. It looks like the government is putting out a plan that makes it look like a thinking government, although the president also went ahead to say that, look, this is coming at a time where that there should have been these policies before now, but there has been a gap, and he noted that gap. I think it's something that we should clinically take a look at. You are calling those businesses, nano businesses that are going to provide 50,000 naira to. Now, this same 50,000 is what an average, middle income earning Nigerian uses to actually fill up his car tank for a week. Now, so how can those 50,000 naira that will be issued to those businesses actually make the desired impact in communities when the prices of commodities have actually gone up? Yes, it looks like a plan that, we need to, push out there. But in terms of the metrics, the numbers, I don't know if indeed we can track them more, because unless we track these promises that are being made, they look fanciful on paper. It looks like attractive in terms of what the government says it intends to do. But if you look at it clinically, you will see that we are providing subsidy through the back door again. In terms of food subsidy, you can see that in the same statement, President Tinubu said that he's already watching the currency exchange unification, and that if that policy doesn't look like what they had planned, that there will be an intervention. So when you intervene at the moment, what does that tell you? It tells you that an arbitrage has been brought back, and that is almost looking like what's going on. But I mean, it sounds good at the moment that the government is thinking about, investing heavily in agriculture. You can see that, they're thinking towards wheat production, cassava production, maize production, rice production. But we saw all of this during the last administration. So if Nigerians don't track, then there'll be a problem. But it looks good for now. And then the promise of a minimum wage increase, I think this should be able to help labor to reassess their threat of a strike on Wednesday. And hopefully they should have a change of mind. So it looks good right now, but we should clinically track every promise that has been made by the presidency here.
We're trying to track every promise. Item 7, Dr. Amadi, talks about the multiple exchange rate regime. And then the president says it's like currency speculation, really. That it's been diverting the monies that should have been used to create more jobs, and then other amenities, putting such monies in the hands of a few elites. What do you have to say to this? Well,
I think as a policy, many Nigerians will support a unified exchange corridor.
Has it really helped?
Well, what has not helped is the floating, floating the currency, allowing it to be a victim of demand supply. We are also manipulators of speculation. Speculation doesn't only arise when there's arbitrage or where people have multiple markets. It arises also where there are persons who are trading in currency or who are manipulating currency. We've seen, for example, with UK, what happened to UK, what happened to other currencies, that, look, you are an import-dependent economy. You are not supply anything of much value apart from oil and gas, oil basically, then you float your currency. So it's subject to so much volatility. And that's why the president says we might step back into the game if we see that level of volatility. Now, what is driving part of the energy costs, inflation, food costs, and other things, is also the impact of this exchange rate. So I didn't think it was a wise policy. I think unifying them is a good thing to take care of the corruption that has become part of it. But again, in this speech, Brent keep talking about the few elites. Look, you would think that it says all these subsidies captured benefit goes to small elites who are using money power. Look, it's not really true. Subsidy, the poor benefit from subsidy. It's true that because of our subsidy misadministration, the smuggling out of the borders and other crisis of governance, it looks like elites benefit more. Why do you know? Today, look at the pump price before subsidy and now. So the logic that the subsidy is to defeat this powerful economic elite is not really true. But I think that the key point in this is that the government is struggling. It's coming back to the fact that maybe they didn't think through this process well. Maybe they did, these palliatives should have come in. You can look at all that roll call of policies. There's none that really addresses the immediate impact of ordinary persons. So now, think in terms of the SMEs. Now, if you help them with credit, with access to funding, it's good for economy. But look, these things cannot immediately produce value in terms of greater economic development, more goods and services that bring down the price. So at the short to medium term, the people will suffer. And that's really the point around removal of subsidy in that whole sense. If they have done phased removal, then you have phased impact, then you can mitigate them small. So what I see in all of this is like giving up. The government has been caught napping, but they have to go back, and they're using the same one tide lifts every boat. So if you improve production, if you give some credit access to business people, then they'll grow the economy. And then a rising tide will carry everybody. Now, before a tide gets the people at the bottom, then the tide will take a long time. So we're going to see significant welfare loss for the poor and the working poor and the rural poor before we begin to, perhaps, if well implemented, the economy grows and hopefully every boat rises. But no evidence that economic growth in the nature of our economy will lift all boats.
All right, Sumner, the president's been saying that about 1 trillion naira has been saved in barely 2 months since subsidy was removed. That seems to be a plus. And so much has been said really about where the kind of palliatives that Nigerians really need. The president's been praising the private sector for increasing, their salaries and all of that. Nothing was said in the president's speech about fixing the refineries. Isn't that where this 1 trillion naira and more should be going to fix this problem in a sustainable manner?
Well, the issues of refineries receiving funding from the public purse is one that will be very controversial any moment from now. And that's why I'm thinking that the president wouldn't have wanted to go that way because we've seen lots of monies being pumped into the refineries without much results. Don't forget, Ibe Kachuku, former petroleum minister, had told us that by 2019, we're going to have the refineries working. And then it later turned to 2020 and then 2021, with Timi Silva there as the Minister of State for Petroleum, still the same promises. And we're told that by 2023, at least one of those refineries, the Port Harcourt refineries, where you have those twin refineries actually being put in place, will be fixed. But, I mean, nothing more. So I think it's based on that, those thinking that you will see that he quietly ran away from that. But it's a good proposal. While some people are saying that we should revive it, there's also another school of thought that says we should sell outright these public refineries because they've just been taking our monies. But, coming also from someone who had earlier, said that this issue of fuel subsidy is fraud and all of that, it's been controversial. Look at the statement that President Tinubu had made then when he was in the ACN in sometime around 2012. He has said that the removal of fuel subsidy then was the Goodluck Jonathan tax. And that it wasn't something that should be done immediately. But in his speech today, he went ahead to say that he has been an advocate of the removal of fuel subsidy. I think that statement, is not totally correct, and it's something that the president should be shown the mirror so that he will see some of the statements that he had made, because he referred to this as the Goodluck Jonathan tax. And it's lack of the preparations that they are put in place that had made them to get into certain situations that I've seen them right now bringing palliatives through the back door in form of subsidy. Because what is happening right now with the CNG buses that are to be provided, it's almost practically like what usually happened in the past. During the SAP time, just like Dr. Sam Mamadi has said, we saw buses being put in place in forms of mass transit. How did they end? Jonathan period, the same thing happened when there was that proposal to remove the fuel subsidy in 2012. They brought buses and cars, almost nothing so much changed. When Buhari came in 2015, similar situation. And so the question now is that if we are introducing buses and we're saying that we're going to bring CNG powered buses, we're saying 3,000. Is 3,000 enough for the entire country? And then now, you now look into some other areas that they have said, agriculture, they are saying that they are going to give us 500,000 hectares of land to be planted. Excuse me, does the federal government have land more than other than the FCT? They will still have to go into partnership with the state governments, and we know how difficult these things can be. We need solutions that are very swift and very quick. That's why I said that there are some areas where they got some wins, and there are some areas where we need to track very well, and there are some areas that we need to take a look at. When you talk about the industrialists, the access to the funds, how swift can some of these industrialists tap into this so that there will be job creation? Because the economy is contracting at the moment because of this fuel subsidy removal, and you will hear them saying that they are going to remove grains from some of the silos and grain reserves. Some of the farmers in the country have been telling us that not much is left in those grain silos, those federal grains reserve that we have. And so the government has to work very hard, because in the past, during the time of the Buhari government, where we had the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and then NEMA and all of that, most of the grains that were left in the silos were taken and given out. So the government has to give concrete measures, because if not, what we see happening in Adamawa State will be a child's play, where people are beginning to go to loot warehouses and all of that because there's hunger in the land. So beautiful as some of these prescriptions are, Nigerians must track them and ensure that the ones that are workable get to reach us, and the 50,000 naira to about 1,300 businesses or so should not go the way of trader money, market money and all of that. We must see results for them.
Yes, so my people, and the update we will carry come from like this video. So this Tinubu speech, it don't attract so many reactions like this. So my people, I wanna see, I wanna reason them. Make una drop in a comment, so make una don't forget to like and share. Una do well. See you all in our next video. DJ